Hello guys, welcome to another video, and today let's talk about CSS frameworks. So CSS is a tool which is used to designing websites. Whenever you go to a website and you see all the beautiful colors, all the beautiful design, that's CSS doing its job. And so today we are going to look at CSS frameworks, which are those tools which help us to write better CSS, to write CSS faster, and really optimize all the whole process of designing. And so the first CSS framework we're going to look at, which is also the most popular, is called Bootstrap. And so you have it right here, Bootstrap. If you want to get it, you can go to getbootstrap.com, and so you'll be able to see the documentation, see some examples, see some icons and themes, and you'll be able to use CSS very easily. And so the main point of Bootstrap is that it helps you to be able to call on different components, different design tools, and different design system quite easily. So all you need to do, for example, if you're getting started, you're using an npm package installer, you can go ahead and type this code to install CSS Bootstrap, and keep in mind that there are multiple versions. You want to choose the latest one. And if you're just coding directly into HTML files, you can go ahead and just put this CDN links and you have access to Bootstrap. But if you want to get all the files of Bootstrap, then you can go ahead and download it. So the download button is somewhere on the page, and so you can equally add all these different elements to your project in order to have all the full options, full customizations. And so we'll go ahead and use and look at some examples. So if you come here, you see it allows you to use CSS variables, and this kind of a real-time effect. Whenever you modify something in a component, it appears directly. And so this is how Bootstrap work. Essentially, once you have installed Bootstrap, all you need to do is to add some specific words or some specific words or some specific class names, and then you have access to all those components. For example, we have this element which was created quite easily and only using HTML, so we didn't need to write all the codes to design all of these elements, but just by putting specific classes at specific positions, we were able to come up with this wonderfully designed navigation bar. And so that's what CSS and Bootstrap permit you to do. You are able to create wonderful items without having to write any CSS code. For example, we're able to create this drop down easily by just adding this code here. And so each class was the one responsible for giving the design to that element. So if you remove the class, the design goes, but by adding the class, you have all those elements. So that's what Bootstrap allows you to do. It speeds up your code drastically. You don't need to go and be designing each element one after the other, but by simply adding the classes, you have all those wonderful design. So Bootstrap is one of the, or if not the most popular CSS framework, so it's definitely one you should check out. So there are so many elements, so many items, and so many components to this. You can easily go to the documentation. Once you have it installed, you come to the documentation, and whatever tool you want to use or whatever item or component you want to use, you can easily go here and see how it's done. For example, if you want alerts, we come here to alerts, and these are the different alerts we can use. And all what we need to do to have these alerts is just to add this HTML code. If you want buttons, for example, to have these different buttons, all what you need to do is add this CSS code, and that's how it works. It's quite easy, and you don't need to worry about writing CSS. Of course, you can always have your customized CSS, but Bootstrap helps you speed the whole process. If you were to do this by your own self, you have to add these classes, open a new CSS file, and add the design for all of these buttons. So it's wonderful. Whatever element you're looking for to add to your website, you can easily find it already designed in Bootstrap. So it's wonderful, and it is quite fast. So you want to check it out. Definitely, this is one of the best CSS frameworks. So moving on to the next, Tailwind.css. This has really blown up in popularity in recent years, and you're going to understand why. And so essentially it does the same thing but a lot more faster, and so you're able to create different items, different elements quite easily by just adding these classes. And so the classes have been designed to be responsive, and that's what makes the strength of Bootstrap, and that's what makes this and that's what makes the strength of Tailwind CSS. It has been designed to be responsive, so all the elements you create on Tailwind CSS are going to work perfectly well on desktop or on laptops or on mobile phones, and so that's really the strength here. While some elements in Bootstrap might be breaking or might not be well designed, elements created with Tailwind CSS really adapt to all screen resolutions, and so it's very nice. It's a wonderful framework, and it is something that has been blowing up in popularity in recent years. And so, for example, here you have an example of what it does. Just look how this card changes when you add some classes. When you add MX Auto, it goes to center. You see how the text changes, and just by adding classes, everything is just changing dynamically. So it's wonderful, it's amazing, and its greatest feature, like I mentioned earlier, is its responsiveness. So you definitely want to check out tailwind.css. It allows you to create websites very fast. I mean, at lightning speed, you can create the most sophisticated websites. You don't need to worry about having a CSS file. You don't need to worry about coding in CSS. All what you need to do is just to know how the elements work and how the different classes operate. So it's a wonderful framework that is really popular, and you should definitely check it out. Its greatest feature, like I mentioned earlier, is that it is responsive. So the same elements that you use, they can adapt to all screen resolutions. So as you can see here, as I'm changing the screen resolution, you see how the elements are just fitting into place without no problem at all. So it's wonderful. It's a great tool. So as you can see, you just have to add this code to be able to do all of this quite easily. So it's amazing. It's amazing. So that's tailwind.css, and if we come down to the bottom of the page, we can see some of the websites which were created with tailwind.css. So it's amazing. You should definitely check it out. So moving on to the next, we have Foundation, which is another CSS framework. I'm not very much experienced with this, but it's quite popular, and you can see all of the brands which use this CSS framework. So definitely it's one that you should check out as well. So moving on to the next, which is a lot less popular but still very significant, is Bulma. So Bulma is also a modern CSS framework. It's focused on responsiveness, modularity, modern, and it's also open source. So it's great, and you can see all of those companies which use Bulma. So I really don't know much about it. I guess it works also very well, so you may want to check it out. But I guess all of them work on the same principle of classes. If you want specific elements, you can do them in the classes. So you can do them using classes. So it's wonderful. You should definitely check it out as well. All of these frameworks are amazing, and they do a great job, definitely. So the last and not the least is Materialize, which for a very long time was very popular thanks to the Materialize happening in mobile apps. This made all the whole Materialize framework gain in popularity. So definitely it's still very much used, but I just guess there are way more interesting frameworks out there, and so Materialize is also another wonderful framework. You should definitely check it out. It has some cool design, and you're able to create elements quite fast. And so here you can see some examples of websites created with Materialize. They don't really look that much interesting to me as compared to the other frameworks. So definitely it's amazing. And so moving on, let's just have a bonus. Here is animate.css. So this is basically a CSS framework which adds animations to your various elements. So you want to use this to add maybe a bounce effect to your text, maybe a flash effect, maybe a pause effect, and so on and so forth. It has so many animations that you can do quite easily. So as you can see, you want to introduce elements, you want to show what every element does whenever it appears, whenever it disappears, or whatever you want to do. So animate really helps you bring in those animations into all of your components. So it's wonderful. It's easy to get started, and it's as easy as well as to add classes. Whenever you want a specific animation, you just have to add the class and it's going to do that. So it's quite easy. You don't have to do it in CSS or JavaScript, but directly from your classes you can be able to add those wonderful animation effects. So it's a wonderful framework, you should definitely check it out and bring more life into all of your components. So don't just have a stale website that doesn't do much, but try to add up and spice up things with animations, and that's going to be very more interesting for your visitors. So hopefully you check out all these wonderful frameworks: Bootstrap, Tailwind, CSS, Foundation, Bulma, and Materialize. They are all wonderful frameworks, and hopefully you use them in your next project. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you on the next one.